For the third consecutive night, Kira couldn't sleep. The young bobcat lay trembling in the corner of the enclosure, amber eyes wide open, staring into the thick darkness surrounding her. The sanctuary staff had tried everything imaginable: heating pads, soft music, plush toys, even mild sedatives, but nothing could soothe the fear and pain visible in the eyes of this wounded wild creature. Only when Blaze, a husky with ice blue eyes, was brought in and placed just outside the enclosure bars at a staff member's random suggestion did Kira slowly close her eyes. Her tense body gradually relaxed, and she fell into a deep sleep for the first time since being rescued. The harsh Montana winter that year not only presented survival challenges for wildlife, but also set the stage for a friendship that transcended natural boundaries. Snow covered the hills more than a meter deep. Temperatures frequently dropped below -20 degrees, testing the survival abilities of even species adapted to mountain winters. The story of Kira and Blaze began 3 weeks earlier when Forest Ranger Jake, during a routine patrol, discovered a trail of fresh blood staining the pristine white snow. Jake had over 20 years of forest experience. He knew that such fresh blood trails signaled a seriously injured animal, potentially easy prey for predators. Yet, instinct told him to follow the trail. Jake carefully tracked the blood, which grew more abundant as he pushed through dense pine trees and knee-deep snow drifts. The trail led to the base of an old pine tree, its trunk covered with moss. There, curled up in the freezing snow, was a young bobcat with hind legs twisted at an unnatural angle. Perhaps only 6 months old, much younger than the age when bobcat kittens typically leave their mothers. Clear signs showed she had freed herself from some mechanical trap, likely poacher's steel jaws, but at the cost of severe spinal trauma. Too young, Jake thought to himself, gently placing the young bobcat in a warm-lined box in his vehicle. On the way to the sanctuary, he constantly checked on her. The small creature only emitted weak growls, not threatening, but painful. Her amber eyes looked at Jake with confusion and deep pain he had never seen in any other animal. Wildlife veterinarian Dr. Emily wasted no time when Jake brought the bobcat in. The sanctuary facilities weren't equipped to handle such serious trauma cases, but this was an emergency. While staff prepared a temporary operating room, Dr. Emily quickly performed initial tests. The bobcat had lost significant blood, had dangerously low body temperature, and showed signs of internal damage. 4 hours of surgery later, Kira, the name Dr. Emily gave the bobcat based on the bright star she saw in the night sky when Jake brought her in, was still alive. But the diagnosis was harsh: permanent nerve damage to the spine and hind legs. A bobcat who cannot hunt has no future in the wild. During those first days, Kira lay motionless in the special enclosure prepared for wildcats, refusing all food. Her eyes sometimes stared vacantly into space, sometimes closed from exhaustion, but never truly entering deep sleep. Monitoring through cameras, Dr. Emily saw the young bobcat frequently trying to stand during the night, only to fall in evident pain. Kira's pitiful cries echoed throughout the center, forcing night staff to cover their ears. The medical team began discussing humane euthanasia options. Dr. Emily knew that saving a bobcat who could never return to the wild meant prolonging life in captivity, not always the most humane choice. But before the final decision was made, Maya, a wildlife photographer working on a project about Montana wolves, visited the sanctuary with Blaze, a white-gray husky with eyes like blue ice. No one expected the chance meeting between Blaze and Kira would change everything. As Maya led Blaze past the special care area, the dog suddenly stopped, ears perked up, nose pointing toward Kira's enclosure. Unlike other dogs who might bark at the scent of wild cats, Blaze just stood still, as if drawn by something uniquely special. Maya allowed Blaze to move closer, standing about a meter from Kira's enclosure bars. That's when the young bobcat unexpectedly raised her head, showing real alertness for the first time. There was no threatening growl typical when a bobcat encounters a dog. Instead, Kira looked at Blaze with rare curiosity, an attentive and focused gaze Dr. Emily hadn't seen since Kira arrived. Blaze slowly took a few more steps, gentle and non-threatening. The dog placed his front paws on the enclosure bars, and Kira, with her first effort since surgery, dragged herself forward using her front legs. The distance between the two creatures narrowed until only the iron bars of the enclosure separated them. Dr. Emily saw something in Kira's eyes she had never seen before, a spark of life. Not the constant fear or pain, but genuine interest. A small door had opened in the closed-off soul of the young bobcat. Maya began coming to the sanctuary every day with Blaze. Initially, they just sat near Kira's enclosure, not forcing interaction or creating pressure. Dr. Emily suggested this experiment continue for 2 weeks to see if Blaze's presence would have a lasting positive impact on Kira or if it was just a momentary reaction. Gradually, Kira spent less time curled up in the far corner and more time near the enclosure bars where she could observe Blaze. The bobcat began accepting food when Blaze was present, something that previously required tremendous effort from staff for minimal results. Kira's basic health indicators also began to stabilize. Heart rate, blood pressure, and body temperature gradually returned to normal levels. The breakthrough came on the 5th night of the experiment. When Maya prepared to take Blaze back to her temporary cabin after a long day of observation, Kira began to emit pitiful cries unlike anything heard before. Not the usual painful growls, but a kind of high-pitched wail, almost like a pleading whimper. The painful sound echoed throughout the sanctuary, making even the most experienced staff shudder. Maya and Blaze had gone about 300 meters when her phone rang. The night staff reported that Kira was in an extreme state of agitation, refusing to calm down despite all gentle sedative measures. Blaze seemed to sense something wrong, too. The dog continuously pulled at the leash, turning his head toward where they had just left, emitting soft howls full of concern. And after an urgent call from the night staff reporting that Kira's condition was deteriorating, Dr. Emily decided to try something unprecedented. Maya was asked to bring Blaze back and place the dog's temporary kennel right next to Kira's enclosure overnight, with a staff member monitoring and recording the entire process through infrared camera systems. When Blaze was placed near Kira's enclosure, something miraculous happened. The young bobcat immediately stopped crying. Kira slowly moved toward Blaze, lying down as close to the enclosure bars as possible. Blaze also pressed close from the outside, his nose almost touching Kira's through the gaps between the bars. Within 5 minutes, Kira had fallen into a deep sleep for the first time since arriving at the sanctuary after days of pain and fear. "We need to understand what's happening here," Dr. Emily said when reviewing the recorded biological data. Kira's cortisol levels dropped 70% within minutes of Blaze being nearby. This can't be coincidence or random chance. Specialized monitoring equipment was installed to track Kira's heart rate, breathing, and even simple brain activity during sleep with and without Blaze. The results were undeniable. Kira only achieved REM sleep, the deep sleep phase necessary for physical and mental recovery, when Blaze was nearby. Without Blaze, Kira fell in a light sleep, constantly jerking awake or remaining completely alert all night. The experiment expanded. They tried recordings of Blaze's sounds, placing toys with Blaze's scent, even trying with another husky of similar appearance. Nothing worked like Blaze's actual presence. There was something very special in the connection between these two creatures that couldn't be explained simply through science. While scientists try to understand this phenomenon, Kira and Blaze developed a deeper relationship. Kira began mimicking Blaze's way of moving. Instead of trying to stand on her weak hind legs, the bobcat learned to use her strong front legs to pull her body forward while dragging her back portion along the ground. Not the natural movement of bobcats, but remarkably effective. Each day, Kira went a little further, exploring more space in a specially designed safe area. There were amazing moments when Kira began mimicking even Blaze's responses to basic commands. Not because she had been trained, but simply from observation. When Blaze sat down at Maya's command, Kira also tried to perform a similar motion. When Blaze tilted his head at a certain whistle, Kira did too, though not perfectly. This was a form of mimicry unexpected in a wild feline species. However, not everything went smoothly. Challenges arose when managers worried about anthropomorphizing a wild bobcat. Sanctuary Director Richard Matthews was concerned about the precedent this might set if all injured wildlife were bonded with domestic animals. Natural balance and reintegration goals could be affected. A test separating Kira and Blaze for 24 hours was conducted as an assessment of dependency levels. However, the test had to stop after 12 hours when Kira fell into an extreme panic state. The young bobcat completely refused food, emitted continuous distress calls, and began scratching at the enclosure walls until her claws bled. Blaze, separated at a distance, wasn't doing better. The dog refused to leave Maya's cabin door, howling continuously as if calling for his friend. Monitoring equipment showed Kira's heart rate and blood pressure spiking to dangerous levels, increasing the risk of post-surgical complications. After 12 hours, Dr. Emily was forced to stop the test, putting Kira's safety above research objectives. Finally, after much evaluation and discussion, Kira was treated as an exceptional case. Maya received special permission to adopt Kira at her home, near the forest edge, where she had prepared a semi-wild space with all the necessary safety conditions for Kira, Blaze, and the surrounding community. 5 years had passed since Kira moved to live with Maya and Blaze. The bobcat had grown to full maturity. Her spinal injury never fully healed as predicted, but her body had adapted remarkably. Kira had developed into a beautiful adult bobcat with a healthy, glossy, spotted coat and bright amber eyes. No longer showing the panic of those early days, Kira's mobility had improved far beyond all predictions. She had developed a unique way of moving, half walking, half crawling, using the extraordinary strength of her front legs and abdominal muscles to move with surprising speed and agility. Though unable to run fast or jump high like fully healthy bobcats, Kira could explore her entire territory, climb onto low rocks, and even climb sturdy tree branches near the ground, an important skill for bobcats. Each morning, Kira would lie on the large flat rock on the eastern side of the property where she could catch the first rays of the day. Blaze would always join her, sometimes resting his head on Kira's shoulder, and both would watch the sunrise in an understanding silence. These moments needed no words, no explanation, just peaceful presence together. Over time, something miraculous happened. The relationship became balanced. Kira was no longer completely dependent on Blaze for security. Now, sometimes Blaze was the one seeking Kira during thunderstorms when thunder frightened the aging dog. Blaze would leave his warm bed in Maya's house, go down to where Kira usually slept, and Kira would lie still, allowing Blaze to press close to her spotted fur. The bobcat had transformed from one being healed to one who heals. By the fourth winter, Blaze began slowing down. Age was showing clearly on the husky's body. Kira seemed to understand this change and began adjusting her pace, waiting for Blaze, never going too far from her aging friend. On an unusually hot autumn afternoon, when yellow leaves fell gently around the property, Kira did something unprecedented, using her nose to gently push Blaze toward the shade beneath a large oak tree. Blaze was breathing heavily in the sunlight, and Kira continuously pushed, guiding her old friend to a cooler spot. Kira wasn't just being cared for anymore. She had become the caretaker. The fifth winter came early and was more severe. Blaze, now 13 years old, went through difficult days. Kira rarely left Blaze during this time. The bobcat often lay close beside Blaze, sharing warmth from her strong body. On the longest winter night that year, Blaze lay on his warm bed in the house, breathing laboriously. Kira, who typically avoided coming indoors, pushed the door open herself and entered, something she had never done before. The bobcat gently laid down beside Blaze, placing her head on her old friend's shoulder. Throughout that night, Kira didn't sleep, eyes wide open, watching Blaze as if trying to transfer strength to her weakening friend. When dawn came, Blaze had passed away in peaceful sleep, with Kira still beside him, still alert, still guarding. The days that followed, Kira lay motionless in the corner of the room where Blaze's bed used to be. But on the third day, Maya saw Kira lying on the eastern rock, where the two friends used to greet the sunrise together. The bobcat lay there, head held high, eyes looking toward the rising sun. Kira was beginning again in her own way. The following spring, Maya found an injured wolf cub with a front leg caught in a poacher's trap, a painfully familiar situation. When Maya placed the small wolf on the new bed, Kira slowly approached. The bobcat gently sniffed the trembling wolf cub, then lay down beside him, her body forming a protective arc around the small creature. That night, for the first time since Blaze passed away, Kira slept a deep and peaceful sleep beside another being. The circle had closed and begun anew. What Blaze had done for Kira years ago, Kira now did for another life in need of help. The lesson of healing was passed on not through words, but through footsteps in the cycle of life. Under the moonlight, a grown bobcat with weak hind legs and a wolf cub with a bandaged front paw together discovered what Kira and Blaze had found. That the path to healing doesn't come from perfection, but from finding someone who understands your pain and is willing to walk in step with you, no matter what.